This man just sneezed on a model. As a result, it was raining outside the window. He looked down and took a closer look. He realized that the model in front of him was almost identical to the town he was in. Even on the top floor of the church, there was another little man just like him standing. Jack had an idea. He pulled out the tree from the model, and the tree in the town took off in the same place. Highly intelligent. He instantly realized that the model could directly manipulate the real town. He poured water around the church without saying a word. As a result, there was indeed a heavy rainstorm around him. But on the other side of the town, the sky was clear. People were talking about the weird weather, and the goddess, Ellie, also complained to him. The paint that was put on the house yesterday in the dining room was messed up by this sudden rainstorm. Hearing this, Jack smiled slightly. He took the nail varnish away her desk when Ellie wasn't looking, and then he painted the entire dining room with it. The next day, Ellie was amazed at what she saw. The dining room had been transformed overnight into her favorite color, orange. While Jack was secretly rejoicing, an old lady suddenly fell down. It turns out there's a hole in the road that hasn't been repaired in years. The old lady said she told the town headman about it countless times, but even though the residents' suggestion box was full of letters, the town's problems have not been alleviated in the slightest. Jack realized he shouldn't be so selfish. He should have used the model for the good of the town. Jack brought the residents' suggestion box back to his house. He was ready to meet the residents' demands one by one. Stick a booger in it. The holes were instantly filled. Use tweezers a few times. The rubbish on the roadside disappeared without a trace. Jack also uses air conditioning. Turned up the heat for the town all night, so the residents could get a good night's sleep. But this weird scene made the dog downstairs bark furiously in fear. In order to gag him, Jack put a leftover bone on his side. Now the dog won't have to worry about food for 3 years. The next day, Jack took to the street to admire his masterpiece, but to his surprise, the residents thought the town headman had done it. They decided to vote to re-elect him, and what's even more outrageous, this shameless town headman even admitted it. Jack was furious. Looking at the town headman's red sports car, Jack was determined to show him how it's done. This man just put a leftover bone on a model. The result was a giant bone in the town. It turns out this model has the ability to synchronize with reality. By sprinkling water on the model, the real world will start to rain directly. Jack picked up a small stone, aimed at the town headman's red sports car, and let go. As a result, the small stone entered the model, turned into a meteorite in reality. It fell and smashed the town headman's new car. The town headman saw the scene. His lungs exploded when he saw this, seeing the little boy beside him gloating. The town headman grabbed the drawing board in the boy's hand. He didn't expect that the boy was drawing his own car being smashed. The town headman was so angry he wanted to hit him, but when he saw a group of residents watching, but the cunning town headman said, although the meteorite can destroy the car, but the resilience of the townspeople can't be broken. An impassioned speech that made everyone present applaud. Appreciate him. Jack was dumbfounded when he saw it. This guy's crisis management is not bad at all. After all, as long as the residents vote to re-elect the town headman, there'll be plenty of sports cars to buy. This car is nothing. When Jack got home, the more he thought about it, the angrier he got. Looking at the town headman walking home alone, Jack took out his pet little spider straight away, and put it on the road. The little pet turned into a big monster in no time. The town headman was scared shitless, watching the town headman about to be eaten as food. Jack grabbed the little pet as soon as he was satisfied. He took it back into his box. Now the mayor won't dare to be arrogant anymore, and Jack decided to leave him alone, because he's going to do something serious. He's going to revive the town's economy. This boy scored less than 100 on the college entrance exam. No university wanted him. In order to cheat his parents, he decided to start a university. Unexpectedly, more than 300 people came on the opening day, and paid £10,000 each for tuition. Jack was shocked. He found Tom and asked what happened. It turns out that in order to make it look real, Tom added an enrollment button on the school's website, and the kind where you click apply and get accepted. As he watched the new students enter the school in droves, Jack realized he'd made a big mistake. This school has no teachers and no textbooks. Jack did not know what to teach them, so a few people decided to hold a meeting to explain the truth. He walked up to the stage, but before he could speak, one of the students stood up in excitement.
When I got accepted here, it was the first time my parents ever said they were proud of me.
The words touched Jack. Looking at their expectant eyes, Jack thought about it, asked a question.
Just show of hands, how many people applied to other colleges?
Everyone raised their hands in unison.
And how many of you got in to the other places you applied to?
Now everyone put their hands down. Jack looked at them. It's like seeing yourself at the beginning, rejected by all the colleges, despised by everyone around him. Now this fake college was their only hope. At this moment, he left all his worries behind. Why shouldn't a low scorer go to college?
Welcome to South Arnhem Institute of Technology!
And that's how the disbursement meeting turned into a motivational speech. Jack became the first headmaster. So here's the question. What was he going to teach? So he went to the university next door to learn from the experience here. He snuck into a classroom, but what he find out that the teacher's lectures are even more boring than high school. The students also want to sleep when they listen to it. There's only a few people who pay attention to the lectures for credit. Jack stood in the crowd and pondered. Is this what he wants out of college? So he decided to create his own teaching style. Through the time he spent with his classmates, he realized that his classmates all had their own interests. As the saying saying goes, interest is the best teacher. So he found a blackboard, asked everyone to write down what they wanted to learn. That's it. South Harmon's first class schedule came out. The whole blackboard was filled with writing. And then, Jack used the tuition money he received to buy a lot of equipment to set up the scene. Soon after, South Harmon's classes began. Some people learned to cook, some learned to carve, some learned to pick up girls, someone studying fashion design. There are all sorts of specialized courses. There are no teachers here. The students are their own teachers. There are no rules and regulations in school. They don't get scolded for not studying well. They explore their own hobbies and interests. Some love to play games. They become professional gaming coaches. Some love music. They became school singers. They all found their confidence in school. In fact, think about it. College life should be like this. But the good life didn't last long. An accident happened. The woman had just boarded the plane when she noticed something bizarre. Long-haul flights are usually full. But at the moment, only she and her daughter were on board. And her daughter had been silent since she boarded. An inexplicable uneasiness came over her. Luckily, a few moments later, passengers were boarding the plane one by one. Ellie didn't notice anything unusual, so she felt a little more at ease. This is a 10-hour long-haul flight. Shortly after takeoff, people were falling asleep. Ellie noticed 2 rows of empty seats in the rear cabin, so she took her daughter there to lie down. And weird things start to happen from this moment on. When she woke up from a nap, she realized that her daughter was gone. At this time, Ellie did not realize the seriousness of the problem. She just thought her daughter was playing and ran off somewhere. But when she searched all 3 passenger cabin of the plane and couldn't find her daughter, Ellie finally panicked. One of the flight attendants, after understanding her situation, on the radio, tell all passengers to look out for a blonde girl about 6 years old. But here's the weird thing, a long time has passed without any news. Even the passenger in front of Ellie said she hadn't noticed Ellie had her daughter with her. Ellie was in a trance. She bustled back to her seat to check. The bear that her daughter had been carrying was right there. This proves that her memory is fine. She hurriedly asked the crew to do a full search of the aircraft, but the crew didn't think so, because no one can leave a sealed cabin at 3,000 meters. Then they said perfunctorily that they'd report it to the captain. But until 10 minutes had passed, the crew did not do any search. Suddenly, Ellie noticed 2 stewardesses muttering something in a panic. She rushed after them, asking if something had happened to her daughter. But the stewardess who hung up the phone said,
Miss Pratt, I'm sorry, but I don't think that she's here.
The flight attendant contacted the ground crew. They did not investigate her daughter's boarding record. Her daughter's name wasn't on the passenger list. Ellie thought it was ridiculous. She hurriedly pulled out her boarding certificate to prove it, but the only boarding pass in her pocket was her own. Ellie instantly became more anxious. She rushed to open the baggage hold. She found her daughter's backpack missing, but daughter can't reach this height, so someone must have taken her. Ellie panicked immediately. She needed to talk to the captain. Then she went straight to the cockpit, but as she frantically rapped on the hatch, she was suddenly stopped by the air marshal behind her. Her behavior had seriously affected the other passengers, but she made so much noise that she alerted the captain. But all he did was ask Ellie if she'd been drinking or taking any drugs before she boarded the plane, and he obviously thought she was hallucinating. And Ellie replied with little confidence that she was on some anti-anxiety medication. Then she explained that her husband had fallen to his death 6 days earlier. That's when she started taking her medication. The purpose of the flight was to bring her husband's body back home for burial. His coffin was in the cargo hold of the plane. Then she got anxious. She made sure her daughter was on the plane with her. Ellie even held her hand before she fell asleep. This is definitely not a hallucination. Her anxious look brought out some sympathy in the captain. Even though everyone said they hadn't seen the girl, he also decided to tell all passengers to return to their seats, to check every place where a child could hide. But this time, they checked every corner of the cabin, including the baggage compartment and the bathroom. Even the cargo and equipment compartments still haven't found any sign of her daughter. Ellie checked under the seats row by row, but there was no sign of her daughter. And that's when the announcement came over the radio. All passengers can start moving around and resting. That means the crew decided to stop the search. Ellie immediately and angrily approached the captain. She was furious that they shouldn't have ended it so hastily, but the captain gave her news he couldn't accept.
Where's my daughter?
If you come with me,
Where is she? Where is she?
Dead, goddammit!
You found her.
No, I didn't find her. Miss Pratt.
They received a fax from the hospital where Ellie's husband died. Said her daughter was brought in at the same time as her husband. Her husband jumped with her daughter. This was completely unacceptable to Ellie. She remembered her daughter playing in the park when her husband died. Immediately after that she started to get dizzy. Had she really gone mad? The captain said nothing more. He told Jack to take Ellie back to her seat. Afterwards, Ellie woke up in her seat. The captain arranged for a psychiatrist to comfort her. It is common for people to experience hallucinations after a traumatic experience, and Ellie also calmed down. She tried to come to terms with it, but then Ellie turned her head. She saw a little heart symbol painted on the glass. Ellie's head snapped out of it. It was the same mark her daughter had made when she first boarded the plane. She held her emotions in check and said she wanted to go to the bathroom. Jack did not refuse her request and accompanied her there. Before entering, Ellie asked Jack to uncuff her, and as soon as she entered, Ellie took off her blouse. She wrapped her fist in her shirt and smashed open the door above her head. Above it was the aircraft's equipment bay. Just then Jack, who was worried about an accident, knocked on the door. Ellie hurriedly poked her head down and said she'd be right out. Then she immediately picked out a line and plugged it in. The oxygen masks fell off the people's heads. Everyone thought there was an emergency. The cabin was in chaos, and Ellie unplugged another wire and shorted out the equipment. All the lights went out. Ellie took advantage of the confusion and escaped from the toilet. She got into the lift and burst into the cargo hold. She called out her daughter's name, but there was no response. And just then, the captain told Jack there was nothing unusual about the plane. Jack realized immediately that Ellie had played him. After some searching, Ellie found her husband's coffin. She suddenly realized that maybe her daughter was hidden inside. She rushed to open the coffin, but there was only her husband's body inside. Judy went limp in an instant. She hoped someone would help her, and that's when Jack found her. This time, he handcuffed her without mercy. He says because of her crazy behavior. The captain decided to land the plane immediately, and at that moment, Judy was even more convinced that she was right. If her daughter really died with her husband, then the coffins herself brought on the plane should be 2 coffins. So she asked for permission to search the plane once it landed, but Jack only told her once the plane landed, she'd be arrested immediately. As she walked down the aisle to her seat, people were applauding. This crazy woman's behavior has delayed everyone's flight. Jack took her to the last row, but once seated, Ellie remained convinced that her daughter was on the plane. She pleaded with Jack.
If you let them arrest me, she's gone forever. I'm begging you.
Looking at her poorly, Jack seemed to take pity on her. After a moment of silence, he called the stewardess and asked her to keep an eye on Ellie. He was going to talk to the captain again. Looks like he's going to help Ellie, but he turned around and walked into the cargo hold. He went straight to Ellie's husband's coffin. He ripped the sponge off the outside. There are 2 bombs and a trigger inside. Turns out it was all a conspiracy on his part. Ellie's daughter was actually on the plane. He hid her in the equipment bay. He planted bombs on both sides of the girl's head. Then he found the captain. Jack gave him an account. Said Ellie wanted them to wire £50 million immediately, or they'd blow up the plane.
She has an accomplice on board. She won't say who it is. But that's who's holding the detonator. They want the plane deboarded on the tarmac, passengers first, then the crew. And they want a G3, fueled and waiting.
Jack said Ellie was carrying explosives through her husband's coffin. When he heard that, the captain panicked, but he tried to negotiate with Ellie. Jack stopped him right away. He lied and said that Ellie didn't want to negotiate with anyone, and from what he could see, Ellie clearly didn't want to hurt anyone, or she wouldn't have let the passengers off the plane first. He suggested that the captain ask the airline to wire the money immediately, to make Ellie think she was in control, and wait until all the passengers are off the plane. It's not too late to arrest her. Out of ideas, the captain nodded his head in agreement. Then he returned to the cabin. A stewardess suddenly stopped him. Turns out she was Jack's accomplice, and she was the one who pretended to get a call from ground that there was no record of Ellie's daughter boarding the plane. She was the one who gave the captain the fake facts proving Ellie's daughter's death, but now she's a little nervous. Jack, on the other hand, had already made his plans.
Dead 2 minutes after we land, they're gonna find her with a bullet hole through her head and a detonator in her hand.
And the only witness, Ellie's daughter, would be blown to bits. And the next thing he knew, he got a message from the captain. The money had been wired to the designated account. Jack was happy. His plan was halfway there. All he had to do was wait for the right moment to take out Ellie. Then everything would be perfect. He lied to Ellie and said, "We need to stay after the plane lands. When everyone's off the plane, 2 police officers would come and help them continue the search." And Ellie believed him. When the plane landed, all the passengers were off the plane, followed by the crew. But then Ellie saw the captain and suddenly rushed over to him, said she'd find his daughter in a few minutes. And when she did, she demanded an apology from the captain. The captain had finally had enough.
Right. Your money has been wired, just as you asked. A G3 is waiting, just as you asked. Perhaps we can do without the pretense of the missing child now.
When she heard those words, Ellie was confused, and Jack, seeing that he's about to be exposed, Jack was ready to get off the plane as if nothing had happened. But Ellie, looking at all the security and the way people were looking at her, she realized it was all Jack's plan. She yells at Jack to stop move.
You get off the plane when I say you get off the plane.
Jack stops pretending and launches himself directly at Ellie. At this point, everyone is convinced that Ellie is the hijacker. But if she dares to tell the truth, her daughter would be the first to die. After that, they let the crew off the plane. Jack closed the hatch, but just as he turned his head for a moment, Ellie hit him with a fire hydrant. While he was dazed, she grabbed her handcuffs and cuffed Jack to the railing. Then she found the detonator in another pocket. Just then, that stewardess came out. She'd been hiding all this time and hadn't got off the plane. Looking in the direction she came from, Ellie knew instantly that her daughter was hidden in the equipment bay. Jack pulled out the gun in his sock. Ellie saw it and ran away. Jack shot through the handcuffs and chased after her. Luckily, Ellie dodged his bullets. She was able to hide in the cockpit. Jack at the door was furious. He told her the truth in a provocative way. It turns out her husband didn't jump off the building himself. In Jack's plan, he needed to frame a hijacker who knew the structure of the plane, and Ellie was the perfect candidate. Then he pushed Ellie's husband off the building. Because the airport doesn't X-ray coffins, he could hide a bomb in it and take it on the plane, and then kidnapped her daughter while she was sleeping, and then worked with the stewardess to lie to Ellie that her daughter was dead. And Ellie had climbed up to the overhead walkway. She threw a book to make a noise, to make Jack think she was running away. She waited for Jack to fall for it and then went after her. She opened the cockpit door cautiously, but within a few steps, she was stopped by the stewardess. Ellie could see she was in a panic. Just a few forced questions made her mind go blank. Ellie took the opportunity to throw a punch. Jack, hearing the commotion, came after her, and Ellie ran to the equipment bay. Desperate. Finally, she found her daughter, who was still unconscious, but she couldn't wake her daughter up no matter what. The sound of Jack coming after us is already overhead. Ellie looked at the two bombs and had an idea. She took her daughter and hid under Jack's feet. Jack screamed and provoked. Tell Ellie to come out and fight. Ellie, however, calmly moved round behind him. She took her daughter and hid in the passage. Jack also found her.
What are you gonna do? Huh? You gonna blow us up?
No, just you.
With those words, she closed the hatch and pressed the trigger. The plane burst into flames. A short time later, Ellie stepped off the plane with her daughter in her arms. As people looked through the smoke to see Ellie's face and the baby he was carrying, they realized that Ellie had been right from the start. After it's all over, the captain made a solemn apology to her. People are looking at Ellie like she's a hero, and I believe that from that moment on, no one would ever question a mother's determination to protect her child.